My name is Jefferson Lee Maloney. I went into the Navy in 1942 and I was released in 1945, a lot of part of 45. I remember it very well when Pearl Harbor was bombed, but my reaction, I was a young man, and my reaction wasn't what it would be now. I was drafted I went to Bainbridge, Maryland for boot camp and then to Noroton Heights, Connecticut in signal school. And I came out of signal school with a rating, and they put me in armed guard, which is naval personnel on merchant ships. They had about 12 to 15 naval people on there, and my job on it was naturally signalman communication. And I stayed in that realm of the thing the whole war until the war ended. I made several trips across the Atlantic, North Atlantic to England and different ports there. But I ended up in the Mediterranean, shuttling people and personnel from North Africa to Italy. And yes, I was in several battles. I mean, around depth charges, and we were attacked several times by airplanes, and had some scrapes, yeah, but it all ended well. A typical day on board ship was I stood watch, with daylight watch. There were 2 signalmen and 1 radioman on each ship, and the rest of them were gunner crews. We had a 5-inch gun on the rear stern and a 3-inch gun on the bow. In midship we had 2 20 millimeters, and my position during battle was on one of the 20 millimeters to load it and change the barrel when it got hot. But that was basically what we did. It was not very exciting unless they were dropping depth charges or we were under raid. Now I was in England under air raids out there 2 or 3 times. But as far as I never shot anybody by the loaded gun that did. I caught a tanker out of Baltimore, brand new tanker, named SS Blackjack. And we went to Aruba and by ourselves, no convoy, no escort, and loaded up with aviation gas and come back to New York and join the convoy that took us over the. And normally we hauled things, locomotives and airplanes and things like key rations, just war stuff. Communication was visual. You could not read, you couldn't use radio at all. And I used semaphore, but your main correspondence was with blinker and with the Morse code, and you had your flag hoist and the semaphore. I had one, his name was Thomas Arthur Wham. He lived in Greensville, South Carolina. And I went into the Navy with him, and I kept in touch with him. He died, he was killed several years ago in an automobile accident. But last month his wife passed away, and I had been in touch with her all the time since his death. And but he was the only one that I kept in touch with. I spent probably 2 years of the 3.5 years on board ship with him, and had a good relationship with him and his wife. In the Mediterranean, when we were hauling stuff from North Africa over to, we had air attacks. The planes would come in, the escort vehicles would we knew about 10 or 15 minutes when we were going to be attacked, and the escorts would lay out a smoke screen around the whole convoy. And the planes would come in from Sunnyside, right where the sun would be in there, and they'd come through that smoke screen, and you didn't know where they were. And on one occasion, there's one happened to come in right over our bow, and you could see your tracer bullets. Every other bullet, your 20 millimeter is a tracer bullet. And thank goodness I wasn't pulling the trigger. But we could see the bullets go in one side of the plane, come out the other, and it crashed a couple of 3 ships over. Now that was the most, of course, I was uneasy with the gas in the tanker. That I was uneasy that whole trip because we had no protection. Yeah, I was in Marseille, France. We were unloading some cargo over there. And yeah, I remember that well. I guess we celebrated, but and then when I left there, I come home and they sent me to the West Coast, and I ended up on a LST. I guess they're getting ready to invade Japan, and I was out there training for that when they dropped the atomic bomb and ended it. Now I remember that. I remember that well. We were in Oceanside, California, and I ended up in San Diego waiting. You had to get points back then to get, and I didn't have hardly enough points. So I was there for a couple of 3 months, I guess. Then they sent me down to Jacksonville, Florida to discharge me. Very subtle. I mean, the war had been over for 3 or 4 months, so it was just a return home for me. My family was glad to see me in Italy, but I was, yes.
Why?
You know, you hear a lot about how cruel that war was over there. It was a different kind of a war. I had several friends that fought Okinawa over in there, and some of the tales they tell me don't compare to those things that happened over in Europe. We had liberty when the ship pulled in, and they were unloading. Sometimes it took them 2 or 3 days to unload. And we always have liberty, so I saw Italy pretty good, and Oran I saw pretty good there, Algiers, and went to Pompeii, and up to Rome, and several places around. So I got pretty familiar with Italy. I guess the air raids in London were the most vivid things I remember, and if you were caught out in it, we got under a bridge or something to protect yourself, and but I guess that's the most vivid. Not much, except trips were pretty normal unless they were dropping depth charges and you begin to get worried about there's something out there and you can't protect yourself. So you have to depend on your escort to look after you. And no, except for the air attacks we had in the Mediterranean. And on one occasion we were in Naples, Italy, and I don't remember, I guess history will tell what went on in Anzio, but I think they run out of gas for the vehicle. And one day we loaded up a shipload of barrels of gas, and we went up there with an old lights and unloaded them from Naples, which is less than a day's run. And we unloaded them up there and came back. Nothing happened, except we were successful. Mm-hmm. I think probably if I had not been married, I would have still be in the Navy. I would have retired to the Navy. It wasn't bad. Of course, I was not in the real Navy. We were naval personnel, but we were, and it was different on merchant ships. We were guests on there. People I mean, we had mess boys and they served our meals and did our laundry and what have you. So it wasn't like being in real on a carrier or large ship. I grew up. I come out mature, a lot more mature than when I went in. You know how you are when you're a teenager. You're happy-go-lucky, free. When I come out, I was glad to be alive. I was helped at all. I mean, it's the magnitude of it were awful, overwhelming, and made me sort of proud to have been part of it. I don't think that it holds true for just World War II veterans. I think it's all veterans, and we owe gratitude to all of them. Some of them, like the Vietnam War, I have my doubts why we should be over there, should have been over there. But, and I have my doubts about where we are today, of how they've been warring over there for 6,000 years, and we're trying to put an end to that. We're not going to. I would give my life for it. I mean, for what it stands for. Yeah, and God, I got kids and grandkids that will benefit from the freedom that we have here, which we wouldn't have if we hadn't fought for it. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But I have a feeling toward history. History is history. Now those statues they're trying to tear down, they shouldn't be messing with those statues. They're part of history. And you can tear down everything in the world, but the history is history. And I don't know. We'll have to see how it turns out. We've always had people like that, and we always will have. I had a hard time with the Japanese, too, the way we were treated there and what we're doing over there. And we still have our armies over there and in Germany. And that's been many years ago, and we're still giving them partly protection. Wouldn't take anything from my experience, but I wouldn't want to go through it again. I always liked the Navy because if you were going to die, you would die. You wouldn't be hungry, and you wouldn't be in the trenches, dirty. So I always figured that the Lord had a way of putting me where He put me.